Hey everyone, happy Wax on Wednesdays. Today I thought it would be fun to show how I use encaustic medium as a finish. And encaustic can be used as a finish on several different mediums, especially collage, and it's a wonderful finish on collage. And this is a collage I did from all vintage papers, and I used a photo. This is my #2 studio puppy, Bendy. This is my 14-week-old Frenchy, and I converted pictures of her from black and white and just use those as my guide for my collage. And when I convert to black and white, I make sure there's a really high contrast of lights and darks, and it makes it easier to create that collage. And like I said, I used a variety of vintage papers for this of all different thicknesses. So in that case, when I'm not sure, and when they're not as lightweight like tissue paper or something like that that's very lightweight, I like to adhere everything down first to the substrate. And for that, I will use an acid-free adhesive, which is Yes Paste, and that makes it really thick and nice for collage, and make sure that everything's down really well so I don't have to worry about it when I go ahead and add the encaustic medium. And I go right to the edges. I don't mind if I go over a little bit because I can take an emery board or some sandpaper and clean off those edges really easily, and I can even sand it a little bit more and give it a little bit of a vintagey feel before I go ahead and add that encaustic medium. Next, I'm just going to take some painter's tape and tape off those sides, and that way if there's any drips that come from the encaustic medium, I have clean edges that I can paint when I am done adding the encaustic medium to this piece. And if you'd like to explore all of the possibilities for encaustic and collage, Encausticology Collage online workshop is available anytime 24/7, and I'll leave the link below the video here so you can check that out. And next, I'm just going to add some clear encaustic medium to this piece in layers. In thin layers, I just gradually build up the encaustic surface over the top of the collage, and I love, love, love seeing how those vintage papers absorb the wax. All papers absorb wax differently, and they all have a different effect. Some of them are completely transformed. My favorite part of this whole process is observing how all of these different vintage papers absorb that encaustic wax. So after I add this first thin layer of encaustic medium, I'm going to go ahead and fuse it thoroughly with a heat gun. And I get asked a lot whether I work with a torch or a heat gun, and I do work with both interchangeably, but when working with encaustic and all these vintage papers, I always use a heat gun when working with collage. And so I go ahead and fuse that really thoroughly and flat so I can add my next layer of encaustic medium. And you can add as many layers as you want after this. You can add texture and incise marks and paint some more and paint the background, and there's all sorts of things that you can continue on with this collage once you've added your first layers of encaustic medium. So your painting doesn't necessarily have to stop with just adding an encaustic finish. You can continue on and create a completely different piece. This week I'm just adding it just as a nice clear coat finish, and I'm going to add about 2 or 3 coats to this, and then show you how I can scrape back in and highlight that focal point of my piece. And after each layer of encaustic that I add, I'm going to fuse it really well and flat with my heat gun so I'm ready to add another layer. And after adding a few layers of encaustic, you may see some significant cloudiness, and that usually goes away after a period of time, after the wax starts curing, and also after you fuse it and buff it after a couple of days. But you can also take a clay scraper tool if you feel that you've lost too much of your focal subject, and take a clay scraper tool and reveal certain highlights or focal points in your composition. And as always, there's never any mistakes with encaustic. So here I have a clay tool, and I just want to reveal a little bit. I want to take some of that wax off of her eyes and off of certain parts of her face where I feel that the wax is a little bit thick. I can go ahead and fuse it, fuse all of those lines from the scraping right out, And here you can see it's like still really dreamy, creamy look around the sides, but her face is a little bit more after clear. A day or so of letting this piece rest, I'm just taking some soft pantyhose and buffing this piece out to a really, really high lacquer-like shine. So I hope you have a lot of fun using encaustic medium as a finish for your collage pieces. And don't forget, there's a full post for this week's video on the blog Plays with Paper. Hope you have fun, and happy Wax on Wednesdays. See you next week.